Hello aspirants, welcome to Pragyān Veda IAS. With the mains Manthanam initiative that we are running, we are going to cover the contemporary affairs, the issues that arise in the newspapers, and TV debates. We will take each issues like that and cover holistically in a 360-degree format all the dimensions and try to frame an answer which is more inclusive and very balanced, based on a lot of study behind. So first theme here is the issue that is there here is revisiting the economic growth model of India. This is a part of GS3 economy subject. So we will take up this appeared in the news recently, so we will take and cover this topic holistically. So just to give a brief before getting into the discussion, so we are going to discuss these issues with the mains perspective. So when it comes to mains, the answer writing becomes the important aspect. Literally all our understanding, our knowledge in issues has to be represented in the format of mains answers, right? And the mains has three major feature components. The first is introduction, second is body, and third is conclusion. This is how we write very systematic, organized content within the available space in the mains booklet. So within the introduction, we are supposed to have the context of the issue and the background of the issue, preferably. That will give the examiner or the person who is checking the paper that the person is well read and has gone through all the current affairs and is quoting that particular event which has appeared, and the question has been framed accordingly. And that becomes a marks fetching area for you. So try to quote context or background, if any, that appeared in the news, if you remember. If not, then sprinkle some facts and figures which are relevant. This will add a lot of value in the very beginning of the answer writing, right, related to that issue. A lot of facts and figures you need to gather and keep it like an armor and release each fact and figures like that, subject wise. Then you can quote some important committees we have across different subjects, polity, economy. We have various committees and reports that are being there, very important. Try to fetch some important components from them, collate them and keep them like an armor and try to sprinkle in the answers. Some indices, important indices, or some judgments in polity related issues, and some important acts to remember. So you need to have all these things covered with yourself to try to sprinkle in any answer that you are going to attempt. And within the body, we have based on the questions demand, you need to write in favor and against pointers. You need to consider the both pros and cons of things and try to systematically organize them in the bullets format. Then concepts and examples. So the kind of body that you're going to write should be mostly explaining a concept, taking a pointer, major theme, and give some examples. There will be examples, because when you give a pointer in particular line of thought, you need to substantiate that with examples. When you do that, then that will give a very powerful explanation of your arguments. Then various government efforts in the directions. Be it any issue, things are not as new as you think. Already the governance system has produced various schemes. We have various bodies that are doing particular jobs. So all these things you need to remember, and some various efforts in that direction. Even some non-government organizations also do various efforts. All those you can cover here and sprinkle them in the answers. Then some various case studies. There are some national good case studies, then international good case studies. Even reports like Niti Aayog, they come up with the standard best practices. So you need to collate all those, or even some newspaper based some case studies. You need to collect them all, and maybe in a box format, if you can just write in the answer, that will give a lot of value to your answer. Then towards the conclusion, we need to give a way forward, being very futuristic and optimistic. Never take extreme sides. Some newspapers you may have seen the authors, especially in the editorials, take very either leftist or rightist standpoint. So never get into any of these extremes. So try to base yourself in the middle, take the best of both, and try to see in a very holistic um, way, and give a very optimistic answer, and that will should give a very good answer for the question asked. And you can use some some diagrams also if required. So instead of way forward, you can write way forward here, and just make it novel, so that the person who is checking the paper is not bored, right? Make it simple for him. And certain other things that to keep in mind before answering or making a framework of answer: have a very balanced understanding, I discussed. Then substantiation, cross fertilization, just like concept and examples, it is the same point. Try to give concepts and explain that concept with examples. Then address the demand of the question. So keeping this framework in mind, first understand and underline the various segments of the question, then answer that part of the question. That will suffice and helping you, cater to the demand of the question. And language competency, a decent language, mostly a bureaucratic language, right? Various keywords of every subjects, if we can remember and sprinkle, then that becomes a good presentation. Legibility and readability, we should not write some very hi-fi English vocabulary things. It is good to have some keywords pertinent to that particular subject, but do not make it too complex. Readable, legible, simple. They say no, KISS formula, keep it simple, stupid, like that. Then we have novelty. Novelty, adding the catching phrases or simple diagrams. I just said no, diagrams like this, or even some diagrams like this. You can just like a tree structure, make it like this. So that will add a lot of value to your answer. Then subject wise language. So each subject like polity, economy, environment, science and tech, all these, even social sciences, social issues, all of them have particular language of speaking. So if you can use them accordingly, then you will be able to the examiner will feel that you are a well-read person, right? Because these are social sciences questions, the gender studies. So you need to write a descriptive answer, not very generic but pertinent to that particular subject. Then you will be able to fetch more marks. And certain keywords I discussed. Every subject has keywords associated. Try to collate them. It will come handy in sprinkling right keywords, right vocabulary in the answers. Now quickly getting into the topic that we have is revisiting the economic growth model of India, right? So this appeared in recent news. I think some editorials came on this. So based on that we will be covering. So in the introduction we can write like this: start, post-COVID economic world order, right, has ushered a retreat from globalization to self-reliance, right? There is a globalized world, and now various countries are becoming inward looking or apparently becoming self-reliant. Like India has Atmanirbhar movement. Even the Britain came out of the European Union, Britain's Brexit we have. So all this, there has been a trend of deglobalization. So keeping that in mind, those events happening across the globe, we have to write a very catchy answer. So ushering a retreat from globalization to self-reliance. Countries are embracing state-led policies like the European Green Deal, India's Atmanirbharta, Atmanirbhar Bharat, right? Like that you can quote. So then the person will feel that the person, the candidate is having is a lot of knowledge and he's well read. He's able to convey a lot of things in simple words or in some words. In this context, India is also poised to promoting rapid growth in manufacturing and service sectors, right? So you need to, when you talk about economic growth, quickly that comes to your mind is primary sector, secondary sector, and tertiary sector. And keeping in mind the Indian scenario, you need to write an answer that India is promoting manufacturing and service sector growth, envisaging in industrial revolution 4.0. So like this, these are some keywords, catchy words that come in news pertinent to that particular subject, say economy. Here you need to sprinkle that in the answer via deep industrialization, which aims for long-term economic growth and stability. That's a very good start. Now, just to make it more catchy, you can just give a timeline like this. Pre-1947, which is pre-independence, during the British era, there was a handcraft business, right? Export, and there was a slow growth like that, you can say. And between 1947 and 1991, just before the LPG reforms, right? You can say agro industries and license Raj, right? In the same time, the government had the fire plans, and various institutions, public sector institutions, were envisaged in the economic policy, the Domer model, Mahalanobis model, etc. Then post the 1991, we had the famous LPG reforms, which opened India to the global trade, and service sector picked up great traction, and that formed the engine of Indian economy, right? Like that you can quote. And in the current decadal term that we have, Make in India, PLI scheme, and all these things, making a lot of growth and ushering India's growth towards prosperity. Like that, you can just give a timeline that will give a very good understanding for the examiner. Then now you need to cater to various challenges, right? What are some challenges in Indian industrial growth that we have? I just talked about the pyramid structure of various sectors of Indian economy. The primary sector we have, secondary sector, and tertiary sector. So in Indian context, I think we have the primary sector, meaning the agricultural, mining, and other sectors where sufficient growth has been achieved. Whereas the secondary sector, which is the manufacturing sector, India has seen a missing middle syndrome, right? There was no much expected growth that was achieved in Indian scenario, and the tertiary sector achieved great growth during the aftermath of the LPG reforms, when the service sector boomed, right? So we can discuss in that context. So lack of effective industrial policy. See, there are certain challenges that Indian industrial growth faces. That there are a lot of bottlenecks, there are no single window clearance systems, and all these things are prevailing. Of course, there's a great advancement made in that direction, but it has underpinnings from politico-historical reasons, right? And the bureaucratic red tapeism, inefficiency that prevails in the system, and industrial locations. All these things are a part of the challenges that form in getting the required growth. There's selective inflows of investment, right? So post the LPG reforms, only few states, especially say Karnataka, Mumbai, and Delhi, they opened up first, and mostly IT based investments came in these states, and only some states got all that inflow coming in. Whereas other sectors, in terms of machinery, power, engineering, core industries, they lacked that investment, and therefore the missing middle syndrome. So there has been a selective inflow of investment. This is one of the biggest challenges that India's economic growth faces. Skewed consumption-led growth. So in India, mostly we have consumption-led growth only. Ideally, it should be export-led growth. So, but ours being such a big market and population added to it, we are mostly consumption-led, growth country. This is one of the challenges that we face. And MSME, which forms the backbone of the Indian economy, adding at least 30 to 40% of its of India's GDP. A lot of issues are there around the credit facility, adequate credit facility, and lack of incentives, right? This is one such important challenge that we face. High dependency on imports, especially various energy, steel, chemicals, and fertilizers related major requirements that of India, we are mostly import dependent only. with which the Indian rupee is not strengthened, and therefore the growth is suppressed, right? And the inadequate infrastructure, especially with respect to logistics and cargo, right? Coming via road, rail, sea link. So Indian government is also having a lot of initiatives in this direction, but still infrastructure plays a big role in getting the investments and operations related facilities for for the growth of any company, right? Like that. Then industry academia gap. So mostly in the education system and the industry that we have, especially in the engineering field and others, the gap between the industry and education seems to be widening also, with which unemployability is rising day by day, right? So therefore this is a big challenge that we are facing currently. And towards the solution, these are some challenges that we talked about. Now towards the solution to deep industrialization, and what are some reforms that can be undertaken? Number one, the regulatory and institutional reforms. Single window clearing systems have to be streamlined. Then bureaucratic bottlenecks have to be minimized, right? Policy frameworks have to come in that direction, and democratization of marketplace, especially in the current context where e-commerce is booming, direct D2C selling is on rise. This has to act as a very good measure to address the same. And introducing new streams of service engineering, right? So there has been a shift within the education system, especially in the engineering stream, that new service sectors are opening up, and therefore new streams of services have to be framed within the engineering studies, so that proper knowledge is imparted and necessary skills are delivered to the graduates, so that they can come out with necessary skills to add value to the market. Then fostering the innovation and inclusivity. So majority of the population, including women, is not a part of the labor market, right? Especially in the field of STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, a lot of glass ceiling that exists, right? So there has to be incentives that are to be provided in terms of education and ushering women's participation in these fields. Bridging the industry academia gap. So especially the international tech transfer that happens, skill-based trainings and job engagements that happen, that has to be catered with respect to the academic renovation, right? Syllabus has to be revised, keeping in the industrial knowledge. And expenditure on R&D and innovation for scaling up any business and so forth, adding value to the economy. There has to be investments incentivized by the government or even in private sectors into R&D and innovations. So currently we have around 1% of GDP investing, and this has to be at least raised to 2%. You can write like this. Then focus on high value sunrise sectors like semiconductors, electronics. All these are upcoming areas of great potential in terms of economy and economic growth. So they have to be kept in mind, and full end-to-end value chain has to be developed in that respect. Strategic integration with global value chains. So we live in a globalized world. You cannot function independently in silos. Therefore, interconnecting with various world market, trilaterally, bilaterally with countries, trade agreements, right? All this have to be kept in mind in developing or adding to India's economic growth. Now, what are already existing government's initiatives to achieve that required growth? So, production-linked incentive scheme, which has gained a lot of applause in Indian context, especially catering to 14 high-end traditional manufacturing sectors, like we have pharma, semiconductors, chemicals, drones. So all this have been taken sector wise, and great efforts have been done, have been carried out in this direction. So national manufacturing policy, which came in 2011, it aimed at raising the contribution of manufacturing sector to GDP by 20% and create, say, around 100 million jobs. This was one such policy which came out. Then PM Gati Shakti, we have the national master plan for the infrastructure growth, rail, road, all that. So this is one such important initiative. Then Bharatmala we have, Sagarmala we have, developing ports, and Bharatmala we have for various other infrastructure development. And we have Startup India, right, ushering that young mind and incubation into entrepreneurship and leading to India's economic growth, especially in this decade of 14 to say 24. A lot of startups have come up. India is adding a lot of unicorns to this list, right, of startups. So all these things are there. So Startup India has also gained a lot of social momentum. Then Make in India 2.0 we had. There has been a campaign happening in the name of Atmanirbharta and all that. So a lot of efforts have been put in this direction also. Disinvestment plans, especially suffering public sector assets, and disinvesting them and getting the private sector capability in, and catalyzing the whole clogged government assets. Then special economic zones, and especially the great example of Gift City in Gujarat. So very systematic plans have been carried out in developing various sectors. Even we have mega food park schemes and all that happening sector wise in a very concentrated manner. Then we have MSME innovation scheme also. So towards the conclusion, what we can write is India is one of the fastest growing economies. So the conclusion has to be very futuristic. Try to sprinkle some very keywords which are catchy, and add some stat also, futuristic stats. So India is one of the fastest growing economies with GDP growth rate of around 78%, right? You can quote. And to sustain this positive trajectory, and strategic approach is essential, covering, write this keywords which are pertinent to economy: fiscal, monetary, trade, industrial and institutional policies. And implementing this comprehensive strategy like that can unlock India's significant economic potential. This will foster continued robust growth, see the keywords, and advancing the nation towards prosperity by becoming $5 trillion economy by 2025. We keep hearing this. We are aiming towards it, right? And it's not far. We can easily achieve it. So like this, when you write a very futuristic, very hope-giving and very comprehensive, summarizing literally the whole answer, that will give a very good conclusion, and that will give a very good impression to the evaluator also. Then we have the previous year questions we can take up and try to see how questions can be framed in line with the current similar questions. Normally countries shift from agriculture to industry, then later to services, but India shifted directly from agriculture to services. We talked about the missing middle syndrome, right? The manufacturing sector. What are the reasons for the huge growth of services vis-a-vis the industry in the country? Can India become a developed country without a strong industrial base? So I think many questions, many pointers that we discussed can be added to this question, right? So this kind of questions can come. Then the next question is, industrial growth rate has lagged behind the overall growth of GDP, right? Industrial growth. I think agriculture sector employs most of the population, around 50, and adds up to 18% to GDP. Then manufacturing sector has around, I think, 25%, and adding GDP of up to 20%, right? 20-25%. Then we have the service sector with least some 20% or something, I think 20-25%, yeah, and it gives a lot of say around 50% of GDP. Service sector adds up to 50% of GDP in Indian context. So question is asked in that regard, that industrial rate has lagged behind the overall growth of GDP in the post reform period, that is after the LPG reforms only. So give reasons. How far the recent changes in industrial policy capable of increasing industrial growth rate? So this was in 2017. Policy came in the news and question was asked accordingly. So like this questions can come. Okay. And some keywords in every subject, like economy we have some keywords I have given here. Try to imbibe them in the answers. Whatever answer that we discussed, or the comprehensive analysis that we did, it is not like a model answer, because UPSC itself doesn't give any model answers, but it expects candidate to give a descriptive answer in a very organized format and give those keywords and that language of that subject correct. That's how it is. So inclusive development, which means sabka saath, sabka vikas, sabka vishwas, or sabka prayas. So this you can sprinkle in the answers. Enhancing ease of doing business and reducing the cost of doing business. Very nice phrase. Even ease of doing business, ease of living, all these are terms, right? Zero defect, zero effect. Very nice term. This is with respect to working on the minimizing the wastage, right, in production. Creating a robust and safe digital infrastructure, right? Very nice phrase. Then we have adequate capital and credit to scale the MSMEs. MSME suffer with credit and scalability, therefore providing that capital requirement and credit. Very nice way, because these are simple words, simple sentences that can add a lot of value, and they explain a lot. In fact, one sentence of this can explain literally a page of words. So this kind of things, this kind of keywords or statements you need to revise, remember, and reproduce in the exam condition, so that you catch the attention of the evaluator and expect good marks to be allotted, right? And we have 5 pillars of self-reliant India. Very nice. Economy, infrastructure, system, demography, and demand. So when we sprinkle this kind of statements, which actually appear in some reports or Niti Aayog reports like that, pick them, and if you can keep them like an armor and sprinkle in the answer, you'll get lot of value or weightage to your answers, like that, right? Yeah, that's all for this issue covering. Thank you. Watch on for the next issue discussion under Mains Manthanam. And the PDF of this, if you would like to take, you can get it in the Telegram channel given in the description of this video. Thank you.